Welcome to Conversations on the Coast, the Bay Area's premier author interview program. And Solange Ritchie will be talking with us today about her debut novel, actually a thriller, called The Burning Man. Thanks for stopping by.
You're quite welcome. It's my pleasure to be here.
Now, it says here in the notes that you're a practicing attorney, and they've dubbed you, among other things, I'm sure, the case saver. What does that mean?
That means that, it's my husband and I have our own practice here in Orange County, and we have an unusual niche area of practice, which is last-minute trials. So generally, we take cases over from other attorneys who have prepared the case, or sometimes we get clients who are unsatisfied with their prior trial attorney and want to switch attorneys just before trial. And usually that comes with a file that's quite well developed as far as the paper, and sometimes there are dispositive motions that are called summary judgment motions.
Yeah, and it also sounds like it comes with a lot of all-nighters.
Well, not so much. It's all about managing your time, and, when you love it, you do what you need to do to get the client to where they need to be. But I'm usually the person who handles those kinds of motions and, frankly, takes a look at the case prior to trial to determine, what are the compelling pieces of evidence that we really want the judge to take a look at and what needs to be excluded. And so that's kind of my my area of expertise. And so I usually save the case because if you lose one of those motions, you can potentially lose the case.
I see.
And if the case doesn't settle at that point, then we gear it up for trial.
And while doing that work, recently you received an interesting award, the award of the State Bar Association of California, called the Solo and Small Firm Section's highest award.
Yes.
Called the Meyer J. Sankari Attorney of the Year.
Yes.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much. That was very rewarding in that the award is given only to one attorney throughout the state.
You're kidding.
Yes. So,
wow.
As you know, California has a lot of lawyers, so I felt very, very grateful to receive that award.
Well, not being busy enough doing all this attorney work, you decided to take up writing.
Yes.
Why was that what you decided you'd like to try?
Well, in legal writing, of course, when you're going to trial, you're always trying to identify the client's story, so to speak. What's going to be compelling to that judge and that jury that's going to make them, obviously identify with your client and more importantly, identify with their damages. And creative writing is a lot of the same thing. It's about writing a story and creating compelling characters. And they're similar in a lot of ways, but they're also very different because, of course, in creative writing, you have a lot more leeway in where your story goes. You're not limited by the fact that the client is telling you. So I looked at it as a methodology to kind of free the right side of my brain a little bit. And at the time I started writing, which was many, many years ago, I had some personal issues going on with the health of somebody close to me. And so I use this as a method of stress relief as well, a way to kind of let go of all the stuff that was happening and just let your mind be free. And never ever thought I would be published, and never thought any of the things that are happening now would have happened to me. So it's very, very rewarding.
Yeah, it's kind of an exciting moment.
Very much so.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
The publicist calls this book a thriller mystery rather than simply a novel, and I quite agree with that. But beyond that aspect, if you will, it seems to me that your book gets into some other themes. One, for example, would be the notion of something you call the power woman, personified by the lead character in the book, Dr. Catherine Cat Powers, yes. one of the FBI's most respected forensic pathologists. What's a power woman, and can you name some in real life?
Yes, I actually can. I consider myself a power woman. I think power women are women who refuse to see the proverbial glass ceiling, and if they see it, they crash through it.
Uh-huh.
They're women who are only defined by where their dreams and their minds can carry them. And I'm a big believer in, people always ask me, how do you do all the charity work that you do, the writing, the lawyering, all this other stuff? And, I'm a big believer in you do what you're passionate about and you do what brings you joy at the end of the day. And if those things converge so that you can do all of them and make the world I hate to say it sounds cliche-ish, but make the world a better place or touch a young person's life along the way so that you're an inspiration, so be it. And so I consider myself a power woman. You name it, from Condoleezza Rice to Hillary Clinton to, our Attorney General out here. She's a power woman. These are all women who have kind of looked at the expectations and then said, well, that might be the expectation for somebody else, but it's not going to be for me, and I'm going to exceed that. And,
I just thought of one other one, Carly Fiorina.
Yeah,
and the way she's conducted herself in that mess she got into.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and I think power women are women who, like I say, they set goals for themselves. They understand what the goals are, but then they're always looking to bring people along with them. I think that's also a mark of a power woman. You can move yourself along in your career or your profession, but the question is, what do you do to share that those goals with others and to share that enlightenment with others? I think that's also the mark of a power woman.
One of the other themes that I see in the book is the struggles that a driven woman torn between career demands and the demands of wife and mother.
Yes. Yeah, and that was really something that I wanted to bring out in the book, and it's something that's really resonated with, I had friends of mine at law firms and in various professions look at the book before it was released, and that's something that really resonated with a lot of my female colleagues, that they really, I had one young lady come to me and said, when I was reading that portion in the first chapter, she said, it brought tears to my eyes because when you go into trial, especially if your trial is a distance away, you may not see your family for a month or 8 weeks. So it's something that really resonates with women. And I don't think it's something that they really talk about because women always are, women are expected to do more and be more to kind of get the same accolades as men. And so I really wanted that as part of the lead character's, her struggles and her issues that she has to deal with.
At the thriller level of the book, if you will, 5 young women of various social backgrounds have been brutally murdered, and there are next to no clues.
Yes.
Stay tuned and you'll find out why there are next to no clues.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Follow us on Twitter at JimFosterCoc or send an email to jimfostercoc@gmail.com.
We're talking today about a debut novel called The Burning Man. The author is Solange Ritchie, who's joining us, and the book is published by Morgan James Publishing. We ended the first segment talking about what kind of life you have to lead if you want to be active in a profession and be a mother and a wife all at the same time. Anything else you want to add? You're thinking about that?
Yes, I think, especially Catherine is surrounded in a profession by a lot of men. Generally police officers are men, detectives are men. She has to deal with the politicians that are involved who want their share of the limelight, all men. And, in my profession, I have some of the same issues. Sometimes I go into court, and other than the court reporter and the court clerk, I may or may not be the only female sitting in the room. Luckily, on our Orange County bench, we have quite a few talented female judges. So it's becoming less so. But I wanted to bring that out as well, that she is, she's strong and capable and level-headed, even though she may occasionally be pushed by the men around her to conform to their ideas of what a woman should be. Because I'm certainly not a conformist by any stretch of the imagination.
Let's get back to the mystery thriller aspect of the book.
Yes.
Why are there next to no clues? There are 5 brutal murders out there waiting, in a sense, to be solved.
Because our killer is very astute at what he's doing. And I don't want to give anything away, spoiler alert, but he is very bright. He's a genius level individual. He knows kind of what the police will be looking for, and he purposefully does what he does in a way that leaves no clues, and that's part of the game for him. It's part of the mind game with the cops and with Catherine. Eventually, he does start to leave very deliberate clues, etchings in the bodies, which are a way of drawing Catherine into his frame of reference and trying to make her, get her off of her game. So it's purposeful on his part, and it's reflective of his level of brilliance and the fact that he has, basically thought everything out ahead of time.
He's a kind of depraved genius, I would say.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the things you call him somewhere in the book.
Yes.
Now, to develop this character, this killer's character, you had to do a hell of a lot of research.
I did.
And did you find a lot of cats like this in your research? A lot of depraved geniuses?
I did. I did a lot of research on serial killers just generally, and then a lot of reading on specific serial killers. People like Ted Bundy is a perfect example of an individual who comes across very, I don't want to say mundane, but Ted Bundy is the kind of guy if your daughter brought him home to you, you'd think, oh yeah, he's a good-looking kid and he's bright and seems to have everything going for him. But when the lights were off or night came down, he turned into something else, and frankly, he even killed people in broad daylight. So he had no compunction or remorse for what he was doing. And I look at him as the type of individual that, people always ask me, well, do you ever understand a serial killer? And Ted Bundy is a perfect example that the answer to that is no. We never understand the motives. We never understand what drives them. And that was kind of a fun part of writing the book, is doing all the research. People always ask me, do you have your book all planned out when you write? And the answer to that is no. I always have my beginning scene and I have my ending scene planned. Mm-hmm. And in between is where all that lovely research comes in. And, I get the characters almost speaking to me when I'm writing, when I'm typing. And, you have this kind of out-of-body experience where the story comes to life and the twists and turns happen, and at the end of the day sometimes you go back and read it and you go, I don't even remember typing that, but I typed it. So that's a lot of fun too.
Oh, that's got to be a fun experience right there.
I don't have the voices talking to me 24/7, just in case you're wondering.
One of the things that one of the methods, if you will,
yes.
of the killer is the use of sulfuric acid.
Yes.
And I assume you found that in the research, and I'm sorry, this is kind of a dumb question, but simply as a writer and a person, did describing the details of that torture, did that trouble you? Did it make you uncomfortable?
No, not really. I did do a lot of research on that particular chemical, and did find stories about factory workers who had inadvertently fallen into vats of it, and they came out and their skin would literally be like peeling away, which sounds really disgusting, but that's the truth. So yeah, I did research into not only that particular chemical, but how prevalent it is and how easy it is to get your hands on it, because that's all part of the kind of the storyline to make it believable. But no, it didn't really bother me. I mean, I've always been a person who, dealt with reality, whatever the reality is. So writing those scenes, I thought was necessary to bring the level of depravity for the serial killer to some kind of a truism. Mm-hmm. And then it also affects Kat because, you can't say she's facing the most evil of evil and then not have
and not have detail.
So you need that kind of detail, and you need to be able to describe it with some level of horror. And that's, again, not to gross the reader out or to affect the reader, but you have to deal with reality when you're dealing with this type of book.
Mm.
Which doesn't bother me.
though you're new to the writing game, the publishing of books game.
Yes.
You, the author of The Burning Man, have some ideas about the thriller mystery genre, how it should look in the future, and we'll look at those ideas when we return.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Follow us on Twitter at JimFosterCoc or send an email to jimfostercoc@gmail.com.
Today we're talking with Solange Ritchie, the author of her debut novel called The Burning Man, published by Morgan James Publishing. And in some of the material that was sent along with the book, you say that you have some ideas on how to strengthen and modernize the thriller mystery genre. Could you share those with us now?
Yes, I will. I have, I love to read this particular genre, both thrillers and mysteries. And ideally right now what you're seeing is a lot of, the characters are usually, male characters are the lead, and the women, maybe a limited character or a victim character, but they're not the lead. And I wanted to change that and have a strong female be a lead. And I thought that would add some interest to this particular genre. In addition to that, my lead character has a quote-unquote sixth sense that she uses when she's under extreme stress. It kind of kicks in, and so there's a little bit of ESP to her, and I just thought that would be more interesting than the Joe Schmo, ex-military, beer drinking,
Navy SEAL,
or the psychiatrist male with his Joe Schmo detective friend. That those characters have been so kind of overdone to death.
Yeah,
and I just, I like you said, I wanted to see a power woman, so we went ahead and wrote a power woman.
And though Kat is a power woman, she insists in every case, if I recall correctly, that upon meeting her, the person that she's meeting is directed immediately by her not to call the doctor this or that, just call me Kat.
Right.
And that sets a whole new way for women in this kind of character. I think it's great.
Yes, I think it reflects her confidence as a woman, and also the fact that she doesn't stand on titles. She's the kind of person, she wants to be judged by her actions as opposed to her title. Mm-hmm. And I think her natural need is to put people at rest, because that's the only way that you're going to get the cooperation that you need when you're coming into an investigation basically in a foreign jurisdiction. And that's what she's all about. She wants to really solve the crime, and part of her character, too, is always remembering that, this is someone's daughter, this is someone's loved one that she's dealing with when she's doing the autopsies or even just discovering the bodies. And I think that humanizes her. It makes her more real and much more believable than, the Joe Schmo, ex-Navy SEAL detective type.
What's also very believable, in my opinion, is the way Kat handles those impossibly difficult conversations with the parents
Yes.
of the victims. That's absolutely great.
Yes.
So there should be more of these power women in this category of writing.
Good.
That
I hope
leads
so.
that leads to an obvious question.
Yes.
Will there be more Kat?
There will be more Kat.
Yay!
I've written in the last 2 years 3 follow-up books, all featuring Kat, and they're all pretty much finished. There's one that I'm still working on the manuscript, adding a little bit to it, but they're all featuring Kat and her son Joey, who you'll meet in the book.
Yeah.
And each one will place her into a new situation. The second one places her against a serial killer firefighter by day who's an arsonist at night.
Oh, how nice.
And a lot of research went into that one. The third book places her in the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area where she's dealing with for lack of a better word, a dirty law firm who's involved in sex trafficking and the sex trade and a lot of other illicit stuff. Mm-hmm. And then the fourth book came to me while I was watching the bombings in Paris by the brothers.
Yep.
And it's basically a bombing scenario taking place in the United States with Middle Eastern funding.
Wow.
So, lots of fun.
What you examine is not limited to Kat and how she feels about things, how she performs. It also gets us into the Burning Man.
Yes.
How does a person become as horrific a person as he is in this book? And you take us in there.
Yes, and that was purposeful, not to make people empathize with his character, but just to show a little bit of the type of parental situation and the type of abuse that can lead to this type of psychosis. Mm-hmm. And again, that came from months of research, a lot of study into, the level of, frankly, brutality and emotional abuse that's necessary to produce somebody with this kind of psychosis. And I wanted that because there's so many movies that have been done about serial killers. For example, Silence of the Lambs. Mm-hmm. I loved the Hannibal Lecter character, but if you think about it, they never explained why he was the way he was. You just knew that he was, biting off people's extremities and really a horrific character, but there was no explanation. And that has, as much as I love Thomas Harris, that has always bothered me. So with this book, I wanted to not give a lot, but just give a glimpse into, what makes somebody like that tick. And I just think that's an interesting parallel to Kat, that you know a little bit about him, and you know a little bit about what his situation was. Just as Kat is human, he has to be somewhat human too.
It's a very interesting point you make in biographical notes that I received, and that is that you were born and raised in Jamaica. Yes. And how that has shaped you as a person.
Yes, I was born in Jamaica to a Jamaican father and a French mother. My family background is originally, we believe, from Portugal. And apparently there was a shipwreck off of Jamaica with a Portuguese ship in the 1870s. Mm-hmm. And that's as far as we've been able to trace back. But there is a large... my maiden name is Levy, and supposedly there is a very large population of Levies in the Portugal area. So we believe we're from Portugal, but we're not entirely sure. And I lived in Jamaica until age 11, which was wonderful, both wonderful and somewhat frightening, because at the time when we left, Jamaica was undergoing a radical change in its economy and somewhat of a crime wave, and things were in a state of uproar down mm-hmm. there. And so I remember the capital city where we lived basically being shut down 3 times and having to write out what they call a state of emergency, where, if you were on the street after the sun went down, you were in trouble with the local police. So things like that, it's not your average American upbringing. And, I look at it as, it was both wonderful and, like I say, somewhat frightening. But I have, very good memories of Jamaica, have a wonderful, big, extended family down there.
Our guest today, Solange Ritchie, is a gift both to the law and to the writing biz. She's just published her first book, The Burning Man. It's been a pleasure to talk to her. This has been Conversations on the Coast, and I'm Jim Foster.
Follow us on Twitter at Jim Foster COC, or send an email to jimfostercoc@gmail.com.